Welcome to the Girl Sis Man podcast.
For the girls we were.
For the sisters we became, and the women we're becoming.
I didn't say it with you, but just letting you guys know, right off the bat, this is our second time around.
Yeah, guys, this is
we're losing steam, but
listen,
we're here.
It's an act of love. Like, I don't know what your love language is, but mine are acts of service. And, like, this is an act of service, guys. Because we recorded this beautiful fire-ass podcast, and I won't say who, but something terrible happened. I didn't say that. You don't have.
I mean, there's only two of us, so if you're not...
They could have made any assumption.
So, if it was you, you would have taken responsibility and said, oh, okay. Nice to know that if it came down to you being responsible, we're not being honest.
No, I'm going to be honest.
You're just not going to be very...
why would I bring it up?
Okay, gotcha.
You know, it's...
But we're going to try to repeat the magic. We're going to try to capture lightning in a bottle. Again.
Twice.
We're gonna do it. I have a feeling. I'm in a talkative mood. I'm in a talkative mood, so I think we got this.
So how are you feeling, man?
I'm feeling great. It is our first episode in like 8-9 months.
It is. It's been 8 months exactly. I know because people come up and tell me it's been 8 months exactly. And just for the record, life was happening.
It was happening, and it was happening fast and hard and all the time, and there were all the feelings. So please stop harassing Esther so she can stop harassing me.
I'm gonna keep harassing her anyway, folks. But in newer updates, we have a second master's degree holder at the table.
There's 3 master's degrees, right?
There are?
Don't you have 2 master's degrees?
I do.
So why did you act like you didn't know?
But I said another.
A holder of a title. Gotcha. There is 2 of us, but between the 2 of us, there's 3 master's degrees, okay? 3 Pete's, okay? Steph Curry ain't got nothing on us. Okay?
What?
Did he get a 3 Pete? That's LeBron.
Yeah, that was him. That was him.
Michael Jordan, too.
Really?
Yeah, both.
But I think that Steph Curry just broke the record.
I don't know. Listen, I don't watch basketball. I'm just making stuff up at this point in time.
That's okay.
I just know he plays basketball. I know there was a whole thing about him and LeBron and the 3-peat. Carry on, people. Carry on.
But in the effort of carrying on, let's give him some updates, Lola. What else is going on in life?
I'm getting a puppy.
She is.
I am expecting. I'm not expecting.
You're expecting a puppy.
I'm adopting a puppy. It is a Chiweenie. It's a Chihuahua Dachshund mix. So some people call it the German taco. Some people call it the Mexican hot dog. I believe her name is Frankie or Penny. We're still debating until we meet the baby.
I like Penny Pickles, but you know.
Well, the thing was, I was on the waiting list for a dog named Pickles, who is my current dog's sibling. So I couldn't name her Penny Pickles because her brother's name is Pickles. Her current name is Naomi, and like I love Naomi Campbell, but I'm not getting Naomi Campbell vibes from her. So
got you.
So I'm doing that. I graduated. I started seeing a therapist. Yes, we love to, grow and flourish. And I'm hopefully moving pretty soon to my own spot, which you are as well.
Yes, so hopefully in the next few months, we'll be able to update you guys and let you know that we have both relocated. And that being the case, y'all, this is all just temporary. Yeah. So you're going to see this desk one day, you're going to see another setup one day until we really can find a permanent home for the GSM podcast. But that's okay because we're hoping that our permanent home is in your heart.
Yes, and just remember, this is aesthetics. This isn't real. We're in the Matrix, okay? This is all fake. It's not fake, but the point being is this is the least important part of this podcast. It's our faces and our voices, okay?
Right. And speaking of voices that matter, Lola, how did you feel about Roe v. Wade? Being overturned, that is, yeah.
I forgot who told me. I think it was Margaret or you who had sent it at first in the group chat. And I was like, wait a second. What's going on? I felt like that Mr. Crab meme where he was just like in a tizzy. I was like, oh my God. Like, I was so disheartened, and I feel so sorry for all the women in certain areas in this country who now have to make really awful and possibly life-threatening, dangerous decisions because they aren't able to have or don't have access to legal and healthy abortions. I was also disheartened by the reception by certain people. There are some women, thankfully, their testimony does not include possibly considering an abortion, or that's not something that they ever believe they'll have to make a choice about. So in their minds, they're very much like, oh, well, if you're having sex or if you're falling pregnant, that is a responsibility you take upon your own. But the truth of the matter is, you might say it could never be me, and it very much could be you one day.
Right.
And if it's not you, it could be your sister, it could be your aunt, it could be anybody who's actually. There was a thing I saw on Instagram. You have to stop saying like women, because there are pregnant people. Like there are people who are trans who still end up pregnant. There are people who are not gender non-conforming, and what the case may be. But there are people whose reproductive rights are pretty much being taken away, and it saddens me. But what about you? How did you feel?
Honestly, the same. Like, I was really sad about it, and it made me really question the legitimacy and the integrity of our politics, right? And that's something that I think that a lot of us have been questioning for some time now. And I say this because it's a known fact that the majority of Americans, it doesn't matter where they sit on the political scale, Republicans, Libertarians, Democrats, the majority of most people want healthy access to abortions, right? And so for this to be overturned, it makes me wonder whose voices are really being represented, right, in government. And I'm like, if our job is to elect officials who speak on our behalf, why is it that 70% of us can say, yes, we want something, and 30% can go ahead and overturn that and make a decision that affects millions upon millions of people? That to me is very disturbing. I also just feel like it makes me sad. I feel like there's a lack of nuance in this country, and it becomes more and more apparent every day. I think it was very apparent in the last administration, right? Like, it's either you're for something or against something, and you're not allowed to be in the middle. But I think that being in the middle is where humanity has succeeded. Like, there's no such thing as sitting on either end of, an extreme spectrum. And I say this because, for example, like, I'm Christian. I 100% support abortion. We are
covered
rights
by the blood of the lamb in this
right,
podcast.
And we believe that the blood of the lamb should cover your abortions. And let me say why. Because, like, you'll be online and they're like, people are like, I'm so tired of living under Christian tyranny. And I'm like, please don't get misconstrued in that, like, these people, I would not, personally, I'm like, I don't know how that's a Christian act. And I say this because if God gave us free will, how could you put a law in place that literally takes that away from people?
Also, you're judging them. You've decided that you, as a third party, can make a better decision about
than this individual whose life you have no idea about.
And you're not God.
Right, whose health you have no idea about, whose situation you have no idea about. I just think it's just very unkind, which is very unchristian. But, like, again, when it just comes to nuances, it also goes to the fact that you're right. A lot of women in their lifetime won't have to consider getting an abortion, but the reality is a lot of women do, or a lot of people do, I should say. And the fact that it's not your experience and that should color your vote seems very, like, hard for me to swallow, because, like, we live in, like, an ecosystem. You know what I'm saying? Like, what happens to me affects you, yada yada. Like, it's a trickle down thing. And so I'm like, we have to be making legislation that cares for the entire ecosystem, that can allow us to live. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to love what someone does, but it does mean that you have to respect that person and their decisions for their life. And it concerns me because now it's Roe v. Wade. What's next? Is it gay marriage? Is it contraception? Is it being able to worship whenever? Is it being able to have I don't know, sex outside of marriage, anything? I just feel like these are conversations that government should have nothing to do with. These are individual lives. I'm like, this is the same government, by the way, that still has not rectified the baby formula shortage. They literally voted against creating companies that could create it. This is the same government that voted against having gas companies not hike up prices.
It's the same government that just passed, you can't sue a police officer
for not reading your Miranda rights. And I'm like, this is what I'm talking about. When we talk about where people sit on the spectrum, I don't think I know any individual that says there's a baby formula shortage. Them kids. Oh, okay, they're hiking prices on gas. Those people that drive. I'm like, it's outlandish. Like, no one is, I don't think, no matter where you sit, these are all decisions that impact all of us for the worse. And so it makes me wonder, is our government truly working? And I don't think it is. And I think it's time that we need to sit down and reevaluate. And now more than ever, I think it's time that we take ownership of the power of our voices. This whole, don't vote because it doesn't matter anyway. A lot of people are now sitting in states that are not safe harbors. Fortunately, Connecticut is a safe harbor, so if you do need to come someplace, we are safe here. But I'm like, now you're sitting in the same states that y'all voted or didn't vote in, right?
Yeah.
And now they have full control of your reproductive rights.
I will say this. It's important to vote, but unfortunately voting is not sufficient. And I think this is why people get disheartened, right? Because you go, well, this person seems like the right choice because they make all these promises. But the issue is when a legislative session happens in your state, there are bills that are either vetoed or they're passed for. And unfortunately for lots of working Americans, they don't have time to testify during legislative session. So they can't hold the representatives accountable. So one of those things where I will say, like, maybe reaching out to your local advocacy group in your community who can do this, who can help you. Right now, like, I'm a part of a group, I'm part of an organization called RACE, which stands for Radical Advocates for Cross-Cultural Education. Yes, that's a shameless plug. And so what we do is that we're trying to advocate for the community, but also informing them. We don't want to do the work for you, but we also want to make it easier for you to get in contact with your representatives. During legislative sessions, we would be like, hey, these are the talking points. These are what they're trying to pass. This is what they're trying to prevent. Here's a template of what you can send your representative via email. This is how you sign up. And unfortunately, they set it up in a way that it's hard for the average middle-class American to take time to do it. So yes, vote for certain people, but also know that you have to be on their ass. There's a scene in Atlanta, in the Real Housewives of Atlanta, Georgia. If we could put the clip in, it is Mama Joyce. She goes like, there is no mountain high enough.
Come on, somebody.
No river wide enough.
Come on, preacher.
To keep me off your ass, boy. And that is the energy we need.
Absolutely, behind our politicians. Or better yet, the reality is most of our politicians are of a generation that is no longer the majority.
Yeah.
We have a number of politicians who, in retrospect, would be retired if they were in actual jobs.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I think, and this is just, me spouting off an idea here, roll with it if you will, but we need to encourage more young people to run for office. AOC and this young man, he's from the Bible Belt. He's a Republican. They're the youngest sitting Congress people right now.
Yeah.
And it's phenomenal. And I'm like, to me, it makes more sense.
Yeah.
I want to see more millennials running for office. Y'all have my support. Y'all can have my money. Take it.
Not for money though.
You gotta support.
You gotta earn it though. You gotta earn the dollar.
Absolutely. But I want to see more young people in government because we're getting a lot of decisions that don't impact these people. The people who made these decisions will probably never be pregnant again. You want to know why? Their time has come and gone. Okay?
Their cartons or egg cartons are like
literally,
gone.
Exactly. They are absolutely gone. I'm like, the eggs are
scrambled.
They're scrambled, and that's all right. They had their time in the sun, They had their time. Their fried, dyed, laid to the side, and they shouldn't be making decisions for young people that they have never met, that they do not represent. It is absolutely outlandish, guys. We have to take charge of our reproductive rights and of our government. We cannot continue to let this just go by passively, and that's what we're doing. And then I think that this is what's been encouraging the Black exodus, like the new Black exodus. You have a lot of people of color, particularly millennials and such, who are starting families, and they're like, I'm getting the bleep up out of here. I won't be where my child will be shot up in school. I won't be where I'll be pulled over for simply driving while Hispanic or driving while Black or living while Asian. You know what I'm saying? It's too much.
No, I understand, and I sympathize with people who have lived generationally in the States and have been through so much trauma.
Yeah.
But I also am concerned that the idea is the exodus. There has been several exodus inside of this country, right? We had the Great Migration up north, right? Where people are forced, based on circumstance, to leave. There needs to be consequences so people don't have to leave. It bothers my soul, right? Like, my parents came from their country to this country, and now I have to repeat the same cycle. I don't want to. I am sorry, but I'm an American, and that what I mean, this is my land too. This land is my land, your land. Yes, sir. We're going to figure it out, because it hurts me that people leave certain places because they're deemed and they're demonized as bad, right? Like, I'm from the Bronx. People are like, oh, we have to leave. The violence is too high. This is too bad. It weaponizes and demonizes people of color in those urban spaces that they dwell in. And I'm not trying to tell people to be Captain Save-A-Ho and think you're going to fix everything, but as a community, we possibly could. And I think the idea has always been like, things are really bad here, there might be something better. And that there might be a better country, but I don't think they're less inherently racist than America. It might be safer physically for your well-being, but I don't know if mentally you'll be better off in a country that's homogeneously white. Because if people talk about Sweden and Denmark, nobody ever mentions, oh, I'm going to West Africa or I'm going to the Caribbean. They don't talk about leaving this predominantly white space for a predominantly black or brown space. They're always talking about other predominantly white spaces. They're a little bit better, but not that much better. You know what I mean?
You know, as someone who has traveled and has lived abroad a little more, I get the exodus. I really, really do.
Yeah.
There was never a time, like, and it goes to show you how outlandish it is. Like, I never once, when I was living in Europe or even in China, never once thought I could possibly get shot up going to an event. I've never once had to think, like, let me wear I have my sandals. Y'all don't even know. Lola and them hate my sandals.
She goes hiking and, first of all, why? Why?
They're these sneaker bottoms, but they're sandal tops. So efficient.
That's like such a mom outfit thing.
It is, but you know what? I wear a cute outfit and then I sandal it up. And let me tell you why. Because it's so sad, but like leaving the house now, my mom is always like, you know, make sure you have something you can run in if something happens. Because that's how often something happens. America officially for the last several years consecutively, except for the pandemic, has had more shootings than days. Mass shootings. Not like, oh, something went down in the Bronx or in Bridgeport. You know what I'm saying? These are mass shootings where multiple people are dying. Literally, what was so sad was that the same day that the Texas shooting happened for that school, there was another shooting. I think I want to say, was it Chicago?
Yeah.
I think
it was in the north.
It was like the north central north area, and it was a hospital. It was like a medical school center that got shot up. And then this person made a post, and I thought it was so powerful. He was like, only in America does one's shooting. It gets overwhelmed by another shooting. Like a hospital gets shot up, or place of health gets shot up,
because it just happened back to back.
Yeah, and it's happening within the same day.
Yeah.
And people want us to believe that, oh, guns don't kill people, people do, and that's very much true. But just like Senator Chris Murphy said, we don't have an outlier in mental health. We have an outlier in guns. We have a problem here in the U.S. And I think that, again, this is why I want younger people to be in office, because I think that we could come to a solution about guns. I don't necessarily, I think you do have a right to bear your arms, right? And most other countries also allow people to carry guns, but no one else has access to military grade weapons like we do here in the U.S.
And it's just unfortunate because people who are very much for the Second Amendment, because I think that's the one correct me if I'm wrong. I don't always remember my amendments in the same order. There's this idea of like, oh, you are trespassing on my right? I'm like, first and foremost, this was written in the Constitution back when we were just gaining our independence, because we had a country across the pond who could have, real quick came over and yoked us up. So we're like, you know what? Grab your arms. We're not in that space anymore. We haven't been for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
We're actually recording this on 4th of July. I would say happy birthday, America, but quite frankly,
it hasn't been happy.
You're a year older, maybe none the wiser.
Yeah.
Get your shit together.
But that's what I'm saying. And I'm like, we have to just start being honest. And I feel like most people can be.
Yeah.
But again, we're being led by people or a government that's very divisive in how they market. Yeah. Prior to this past year, I've never been the ones to be like, I'm a Democrat or I'm a Republican. I've always been like, I'm a moderate. I sit in the middle, and I like to make choices that are good for the time that we are in, right? Yeah. But now it's like they're drawing lines in the sand, and they're like, you can either be one or the other. And I'm like, I don't exactly love what's going on this side, but I could die if I vote for this side. Yeah. And it shouldn't have to be that way. I feel like we're lacking nuance in this country because people are not willing to compromise. They're not willing to have real conversations. It's a problem. It is costing Americans their liberties, their lives, their health care, their mental health. I'm like, we are in a very vicious and dangerous cycle. And if we do not step up to the plate as young people, because it really is our time. I'm like, you're never going to be this young again. I'm like, then we will constantly have to continue this. And then from here on out, it's our kids dealing with this.
Yeah. I will say this. I am disheartened with the type of discourse that's happening on Instagram because obviously Justice Clarence Thompson is a black man and everyone's like, oh, I can't believe this N-word doesn't realize his place. And I've seen a lot of racist rhetoric coming from like white women. Like, oh, you're impeding on our law. Let's humble you real quick. And I'm like, see, this is why I haven't said anything publicly because I'm not liking this. Like, I'm not going to jump ship and let you degrade someone else. Let's degrade his politics.
Right.
But like to be like, oh, he doesn't know who he is. He's married to a white woman. He very much is. He might probably live a life that's a lot more privileged than the average black person. But like, also, Susie on Twitter, you were too quick to write that up on Twitter. Your ER and that your thumb was hitting that ER real hard and real quick. Yeah. Real quick. And I'm like, so you host racial prejudice in your body that you feel like
you choose when to wield it. Like,
you find the perfect time. You're like, this is the perfect time to let it out. And it's like, no, I'm watching you. And that's how I felt about women posting things like, oh, it's like The Handmaid's Tale. It's like did you ever watch the show?
Yeah.
And I'm like, no, that's the life of most women of color.
Yeah.
Think about those women who are caged up on the border, separated from their kids.
Taking care of other people's kids.
People who get locked up who give birth, and just anybody. Those people who, like, their kids are separated through the foster care system and all these other things. That is the life of many women of color.
Or marginalized groups in general.
Exactly.
And I'm like, and that's my thing. Like, these are not things that are unheard of, and we can't just wait for it to impact every single one of us for us to have an outcry. Like, we just have to do better.
We have to be better.
And when we even talk about kids, like, that actually leads me to a more personal topic, which is where I'm like, now it's kind of between Roe v. Wade being overturned, and then me also galvanizing people to live their better lives, whether it be through the mass exodus or taking up a place in politics. You know, I've recently just had a real conversation with myself, and I was like, I don't see me having kids anytime soon. And that's not to say that I don't want kids. It would be totally okay if I didn't, but I do, right? Yeah. And I'm like, I am not settling down anytime soon. I feel like a young spring chicken. I've still got it. These hips still gyrate. Let me tell you. The boys can. I'm kidding. But no, on a real note, it's made me realize I do want to take control of my reproductive organs, right? And so the other day I was like, dude, I want to find out how fertile I am. I want to know if I can possibly freeze my eggs. That's something that I'm looking into, right? Because my company actually helps pay for it. It's still a pretty penny. Good golly, this country is trying to rob you.
Listen, if universal health care wasn't a problem here, we would all just line up, figure it out. But unfortunately, that's not the case. And that's another discussion for another day. But again, America, do better. Get your shit together, America.
Come on now. But I really just was like, oh my gosh, I think I want to freeze my eggs. And it's so crazy because I never thought I'd be the person saying that. Yeah. I very much come from a Caribbean household. I just assume,
you're a fertile myrtle.
I'm a fertile myrtle.
You got the wide birthing
Come on, the birthing hips, Papa. Come on, you know what I'm saying? But, you know, recently who taught me better was actually a friend of mine pre-COVID who got tested for fertility because she was just like, I'm just going to go for the heck of it. And they were just like, hey, you've got like 6 eggs left up in this bed. Well, you better start shooting it up. Not six. But they were like, you have a very low count for someone your age. She's in her 20s. And they're like, you have a very low count for someone in your age group. And they were like, you really need to start making plans for when you want to have children. And soon is probably the best course of action. And if not soon, you should probably talk about freezing your eggs. Okay. And she did get a second opinion, and the doctor also confirmed their findings, right? Okay. That's also something that we can, like, I really encourage people to do is always get a second opinion. There are some folk out here just for your money. They'll be like, you have no eggs, just so you can go freeze your eggs.
Your fallopian tube is about to fall off.
Right, like, literally. The shells have cracked, you know? Come on, you know? So I think that, like, she had told me her tale, and I was like, oh, sweetheart, I'm so sorry. You know, and for like, myself, that's a you thing. That's sorry to that girl. Sorry to that girl, you know, I'm just, come on. And then recently I was like, oh my gosh, I'm turning 27 in a few months. And I was like, I have no prospects. I am much like, what's her name? Elizabeth Bennet.
Ah.
No prospects.
There is a Mr. Darcy somewhere.
Come on.
There is.
But we're not in alignment right now, me and
Okay.
Mr. Darcy. And I felt like even if I did get married, I wouldn't want to have kids right away. There's a lot that I want to do prior to being a mother. Not that I can't do them afterwards, but I just feel like while I'm in this
But it's insurance.
Right,
it's
exactly.
insurance.
And also, Adrienne Ballon, former Cheetah Girl, co-host of The Real, which recently just ended. If y'all are looking for a cast for the next one. But she talked about how she's nearing 40. She's a young Latina woman, and she was saying how she was so sure. You know what I'm saying? She was just like, I was just so sure I would never have problems with getting pregnant. Mm-hmm. And she's been trying for over the last half decade, and she has been unable to get pregnant. And it happens so much more often than we think. Yeah. So I really encourage, anyone who's watching this who has the ability to get pregnant, to take that step, right? Check how fertile you are. Even if you've already had a child, these things change up so quick. So,
checked out.
Looking to freeze my eggs in the near future.
Zoe Dutch, she's the actress. She was in, I'm trying to think if you remember her. Zoe Dutch, have you ever watched Back to the Future?
No.
Okay, well, that reference can go right over your head. She's an actress. Okay. Her mother was in Back to the Future. And point being, she just promoted getting her fertility check, so maybe I can link it down below for anybody who's interested.
We can certainly try. But I think that, especially as we're going through this next season of change, be it moving from our parents' homes, be it moving our podcast around, or taking whatever avenue, getting into politics, making sure that we're having our voices heard, we're just going to encourage you guys to ride those waves with us. Share what your experiences are in this season of change. We'll share ours. And hopefully we'll hear from you guys soon. And you'll come along for the ride.
Leave your comments in the comment sections. Thoughts, concerns, preguntas, everything. We love to hear it. We love to see it.
So guys, I guess we'll see you next time.
Bye.